Okay, so I'm about to set this wall cabinet right here with the range hood. There's a couple of things I wanted to mention. IKEA, they for some reason their cabinets are 14 inches deep for their wall cabinet. Most big house cabinets are 12 inches, which is what this dimension is, and that's how this would be set up, in a normal situation. So I've got this extra 2.5 inches or 2 inches right here that I have to deal with. So I'm going to take this sheet metal here, this aluminum, I'm going to bend it and kind of create a little, a little protection here for behind here. I don't want things to, grease or anything to get up in here. So I'm going to close this off with this sheet metal. But you can see I've set up this wall here with the 1/4 inch plywood, screwed it off real good. That's going to get this tile, some secret tile I'm going to show you a little later. And then you see it transitions into the siding right here, because I'm going to have siding coming down to the floating shelf, and then it's going to be tile underneath. And I'll show you how all that's going to work. You see there's a range hood wire right there, which I'll obviously hook up to the hood. So we'll see how all that goes. Okay, a little bit of an update. You see I've continued with the cabinets. Let me show you real quickly. Now we've got the end panel here on this top cabinet that does a nice job of finishing out this range hood. Underneath you can see where I installed that piece of metal to make up the difference, the 12 inches that the actual setup for this range hood was for. And I told you before, IKEA does 14 inches. So I needed to make up that difference with that piece of metal there. You can also see that I've got the refrigerator dry fit, and it looks really cool. And I got some other things I'm going to do with it. I modified this here to have a little bit of a space here with a piano hinge, and then obviously you see how that works. Now we're getting ready to do the countertop, and boy, there's a lot to do with this. Here's the gas cooktop, and you can see how this is set up. And then here's the sink. I'm going to do this sink as an undermount, and I've got this as just a template right now with this scrap piece of plywood. But I've got to do this cutout, and I want to show you a couple of things. IKEA continues to surprise me with their products and information, or lack of information about their products, and we're going to talk more about that. So here is the IKEA butcher block countertop that we're going to use. Now this is solid wood, and obviously we wanted to do the undermount sink as I showed you with the scrap of plywood. Now there's a couple of things that I wanted to point out. Again, not to throw IKEA under the bus, but every time I turn around there's a new thing, new surprise for me. So we kind of looked through the instructions, which really just kind of like a bunch of cartoons, right? But then they tell me here that we've got 3 7/8 kind of a, I'm assuming, a minimum edge to the, for the sink. Like you come over here, and the reason being, if I get into within 3 inches of the edge, this may have a tendency to want to fail because of water, depending on how I seal it. But even with that, because there's just not much structure there, so I have to take that into account when I'm doing this. And so the next surprise, I get over here, and this is the other little booklet, and basically you go through this thing, and all of a sudden it tells you right here that this top is already pre-treated with their own oil. Well, I had gone through a lot of painstaking detail in my own mind as to how I might treat and finish this wood, and I wanted to use a Waterlox product instead of a urethane or a varnish or a tung oil. And here I am all of a sudden in the business of dealing with the pre-treat that IKEA has done to this top. So just like I said, another surprise from IKEA. And again, love their products, using their products, but just a surprise at every turn. Now if you look at this edge, you can see the way this was brought to me by, when I got it, was all these little edges, end blocks, are short, which is just guaranteed to, provide an opportunity for failure, like this little guy here. And if I want to cut this countertop, the sink, starting right in here somewhere, you know, this is just a small piece. So what I've decided to do, if you look closely, you can see that there's long boards kind of in through here. So in order to have the longest edge possible, I think I'll start with this line or somewhere up in here, if you can see what I'm doing. And I'll cut the countertop, I'll just cut this edge off all the way through here to start my layout. That way I've got all these long boards to help my cause of preserving this edge and keeping it from failing. So just more stuff that you're trying to deal with as you go through. Here's the actual template, you know, for the sink. And so you can see here as I move this towards, back up a little bit, the edge, how it's going to be installed. I don't want these short little pieces right in here. So what I'll do is like I said, I'll cut it way back here, and then I'll have all solid long pieces for the countertop. I hope that helps with the installation. Okay, so you can see I've done the sink cutout, and after a lot of deliberation, I decided to do this freehand. I did this completely freehand with circular saw, and I cut some, or actually I drilled some holes in the corners and sanded. I think it looks pretty good, so I did that first before I went any further down the way, make sure I could complete this successfully. But I did want to show you all these block cutoffs that I was talking about. So this is now the new edge, and as you can see, every one of these pieces is full length, and I've, you know, missed all these little guys. It would have still been part of the overhang, or the, you know, the edge to the right of the sink. This was a test hole I did the drill bit to see how it performed and if it would, you know, chip or whatever, and you see it was a pretty clean deal. But that's it. So there's my cut. Got rid of all these little blocks on this end, preserved full length blocks, so that I hope this thing holds up over time, being just that it's just this, you know, width. And like I said, this turned out pretty good. So I've already cut it to length down there. I've got this marked for the cooktop. This isn't nearly as important because this is a self-rimming, you know, drop-in cooktop, so it doesn't have to be as nice a cut as what I had to do over here because of the undermount. You're going to see all this when it's finished. So, looking good. So here it is, installed. Well, I say installed, it's just laying up here, but this worked out really well. I've got it just a little bit tucked over the sink. That's what I like to do on this because I don't want that edge to be, you know, the sink exposed here. I'd rather the top kind of go over it just a little bit, which is what I've done. And you can see now I've got the cooktop positioned as well. So it looks really pretty. And get ready to button this thing up, man. We're getting close. Very, very exciting. Merry Christmas, Coty. Coty. Merry Christmas, buddy.